Hello, class. The last time we were discussing the older adults, and as with anything in this country, in fact, all over the world, one's economic status is directly linked to their overall health experience or the quality of health that they experience. People with high economic status, most of the time, everything being normal, they experience a much higher quality of life experience as compared to those with low economic status. And in most cases, that is much more, even more pronounced when you think of the two extremes, the elderly, the older adults, and the young, the infants. If they exist in a low economic status or poor economic status, most of the time, their health outcomes are usually not good because either they cannot afford to provide those things that can provide them a healthy condition, such as where they live, type of food they eat, their housing situation, type of health services they receive. So now we're going to continue with this, the economic status of the older adults. In 1970, about 25% of older adults lived in poverty. In 1913, about 9.5% lived in poverty. That's a great improvement. Because again, level of education, quality of services provided by the government, by other philanthropic, and people's ability also to just being able to be more productive. And the major source of income. So major, what is the real, the bread line? Most of the time is the social security. And most of the time, your social security also depends on how much did you put into it while you were a young, thriving individual in the workforce. What sort of job did you get? What sort of employment? Because certain employment most of the time do not give you much, but other type will give you a good dose, a good amount of social security. See, everything is tied to your employment status. And in most cases, some of these things become more problematic for minority populations or underserved populations, who a good number of them most of the time rely on government services. And most of the time, their social security is usually very basic. And with the cost of living today, that can be a real challenge. That might not just be enough for them to survive, or maybe stay in their home. And when you cannot stay in a home and become homeless, your health quality suffers. So for most people, Social Security is the main source. But that Social Security, again, is predetermined by your contribution to your Social Security. And most of the time, the well-paying jobs contribute a lot more than jobs that are not well-paying. So again, that in itself is a challenge. Income from assets reported by 51%. See, because this booming generation, most of them have assets, either money from their property. Some have homes, some have businesses. So you have some people who have assets, who gets income from there, from private pensions, the jobs that they worked on. They also got money. There are certain jobs you work for about 20 years, you're entitled to a pension. You work to the amount, depending on whatever can increase the amount of pension you have. But it's a minimum years that you work before you start getting pension from those places. Again, all of this tie into were you fully employed all through your adult life? Or were you one of those 1 year employed, 2 years down? They don't ask us, and this guy will always say, Jesse Jackson said, the last employed, the first fired. See, all of those create some breaks in your pension, in whatever you're going to get. Constant employment helps. Then you have government employee pension, which is also 45%. 14%, reported by 14%. They get their income from government employee. Most cases, like the military, those people who went to the armed force or doing government services, government employment. See, one of the things that most of the time government does not pay much compared to the private sector, but their benefits are usually very good. So people who spend their lives working for government, most of the time their pensions, everything being normal, is usually good. And from other earnings from other activities that they do, because all the adults, as we said, some people do not necessarily stay away from the workforce. Some people still do some jobs. They contribute. They become consultant. And they can do part-time jobs. So it's not because, okay, they are retired, therefore, especially those in good health, will continue to be earning a living. Education, again, economic status is tied to education in most cases. The higher your level of education, the better it is your economic outlook. The lower your level of education, the lower your economic outlook. So, very, very important for people to take education very seriously. Despite the challenges, if you stay at it, there's a benefit for you down the road when you need it the most. Because those with less education usually experiences low economic status, belong to that group. Those with higher education, in most of the time, exist between their economic status is either satisfactory or much higher, depending on the profession. Percentage of older adults who completed high school rose from 28% in 1970 to 84%. See, more people educated, the higher the chance, again, the better are your conditions. To communities that really encourages, create environment in which students are encouraged, motivated to go to school, to at least earn a high school diploma, gives them certain option when they graduate to be employed and be able to earn a living in some areas. It even gets better when you get your bachelor's degree. Or it gets really better when you get your master's and doctorate or degrees beyond your bachelor's degree. See, 25% of older adults. So it is extremely important for individuals to try to aspire to gain more access to higher education that can provide them benefits that down the road, those benefits can really improve their economic status and which can also help them to be able to deal with housing challenges and also deals with services. And as people continue to age, deals with services. Whether you can live in your house or go into uh, some of those services services that the government provides, those houses that the government provide. And at times, even some of those services, assisted living, they can be extremely expensive. So depending on your social security, depending on all those other assets, you might just not be able to live in one that can really give you a most comfortable living environment. Differences by race and ethnicity. As with any, whenever you're thinking of any of those variables that we've been discussing, great when you look at the number 28, it rose from 28% in 1970 to 84% in 2014, those who completed high school. 25% of older adults had a bachelor's degree or higher in 2014. But when you break this down, you will find out that African Americans and underserved and other underserved ethnicities have a much lower percentage. So when it's good figures, yeah. But when you break it down, just like any other determinants that we've been dealing with, there is always a divide between the races. Most of this are much more, whites have done much better in some of these indicators. But African Americans and other minority groups have not done so well. And when you break it even further, there have been some ethnic immigrants who have done extremely well. So right now, the African American population, when you break these things down further down, it's becoming much more challenging because now you look at how many African American go to college, finish with their bachelor's, their master's, and their doctorates. You now have more women, African American women, attaining those ranks. You see, and most of the time, the African American male is falling back in terms of educational achievement compared to that of African American women. And so this situation presents some other challenges down the road. When you start talking about relationships, some of those cultural held beliefs, how does this impact the relationship between an African American male with a bachelor's degree and an African American woman with a PhD or an MD? Most of the time, there are some frictions. Who is the breadwinner? And these are all manifests itself as people age. As people age, who will be the one with more money? Baby boomers, most educated cohort in US history. Well, that's a lot of variables, you know. Say after the World War II, there was a lot of promotional opportunities by the government to get people educated. Government supported a lot of educational activities. And again, just as with any, some of those educational opportunities went more for whites than blacks, even though blacks were also involved in fighting for the health, the security of this nation. So you can never take away the racial component of whenever you hear this big word, baby boomers. Baby boomers were able to go to college, were able to buy houses, own property, more than African Americans who went to war, were denied some of these privileges, because owning a house is part of your asset. You start building asset. When you don't own a house, it's a challenge for you to build asset. And when you don't have the ability to go to college, that also becomes a challenge. Fewer African Americans had the opportunity to really go to universities, and in some states, for higher degree. In some states, they would rather send African Americans to other states to further their education than to allow their African American citizens to further their education in their state. Unfortunately, Virginia was one of those. And in most cases, this was much more common with the southern states. Again, there's always, whenever you talk of certain things, there's always that devil that is hiding there, that's influencing the decision being made, that always disadvantaged African Americans. Housing conditions. Again, your socioeconomic status depends or will determine in which environment you live, what sort of housing you live in, what quality you live in. Most of the time, lower socioeconomic people in the lower socioeconomic ladder usually lived in poor environment with poor services, poor drinking water, poor food services. And these are all challenges. These are all challenges. And right now, even now, you have some older adults who live in houses that are well connected, Wi-Fi, all the necessary technology that they want. But you have some older Americans who live in houses that cannot afford the Wi-Fi, the broadband. So even when we talk of COVID, they keep saying, oh, well, people should register your this. So when people don't have the ability to register, don't have a laptop or a computer, right away, that does not really serve them well. It's because if you don't have, or you're in your housing situation, it's not well situated in places wherein it's well connected, the connectivity, the Wi-Fi, it's very, very difficult for people to be able to access necessary information that is good for them. So there is a lot of health promotion education today on the internet, from CDC to Minority Health to other, NIH, great information. The World Health Organization, they all produce a lot of valuable information for all ages. But how many of the people, especially older adults, have access to those information? Or do they even know how to access those information? So most of the time, when I look at percentages, especially when the percentages are not broken down by all the other groups in this country, just bulk the whole thing like, okay, most live in adequate, affordable housing, 81% own, 19% rent. Okay, what about the homeless? You see, because at times some of these things are also things that we have to talk about. Because some of these things, the information at times when we give out information like this, I see it as incomplete. What makes that 81%? What makes that 19%? Or have they just, in a way, this 81, 19%, yeah, gives you 100%. But have we discussed the homeless? Or have we broken down the 81% to by race and ethnicity? Because just presenting it in this manner gives that false sense that, oh, well, everybody really is living under a roof. No, no, especially you go to some of these big cities, you'll find out that not everybody lives under a roof. And if you go to the rural areas and some people don't, what they call a house, I don't know. Some is even worse than a hut. So great as it looks, and yes, the amount of wealth has grown. A lot of people in this country are very, very healthy, and affordable home housing has become easy for those that are healthy. Big mansions, number of people living there, maybe four, five, maybe three, and some living in other houses, small, three, four rooms. You talk about 10 people, eight people. Again, these are all challenges when you talk of housing, because older adults, in most cases, those with families want to live with their family. And those older adults might have not been able to make that much to have a big house wherein they can accommodate their growing family. And health has also shown the more crowded the living environment is, the higher the probability of transmission of diseases will contribute to poor health. Older adults' homes tend to be older or of lower value and in great need of repairs than the homes of younger counterparts. Now, here, older adult also, when you say homes tend to be older, tend to have also some health challenges. Pipes that brings in drinking water, paint, what sort of paint containing lead, and electricity, what sort of quality of electricity, network connectivity, how much, if any. So they usually have lower value when you compare to those living or their younger counterparts. The roofing either leaks or the siding. As with anything, the older it is, the more repair it needs, because things, regardless of how great they were at one point, with age, naturally elements break down. The heating system, which older adults need a lot of, good heating system, ventilation, cooling system. You see, because again, those are some of the challenges. Some people during winter, they don't have appropriate cooling system in their homes. Some can freeze to death. During the heat of summer, some people die in their homes because of poor or no air conditioning. So for most older adults, housing presents an asset. Health profile of older adults. Health status of older adults has improved over the years. People are living longer and functional health. That the mind is, okay because of government services and other philanthropic services. But again, when you break those things down, there are differences. And chronically disabled has been decreasing. People who are chronically disabled have been decreasing. Now, because there are better ways to deal with the disabled people, better technology, you have wheelchairs, better hearing aids, and some other things that helps the older adults to be functional. Health status usually not as good as younger counterparts. Yeah, that's in general, it's as we age, our bodies break down. For certain population, the breakdown is much faster than others based on lifestyle, based on environmental and social conditions, based on health services. So there are variables that contribute to this discrepancy, this disparity. The top cause of death for older adults, responsible for almost two-thirds of adults' death, is heart disease, cancer, CRD, stroke, Alzheimer's. Morbidity, limited activity limitation increase with age. People are less more mobile, and some don't have the ability to engage in physical activities. And those conditions or situations can contribute to poor quality of health. You have chronic conditions, substantial burden on health and economic status of individual, family, and nation. So when health quality or as people age, that's the time people really rely on medical services and also rely on social supports, the economic status of individual rely on, if their economic status are not great, then they rely on family members. And if that is not great, hopefully the nation comes in to help. You talk of impairment, very prevalent in older adults. Impairment such as hearing or sight. It's common. But again, depending on your socioeconomic status, some people are able to buy good hearing aids, be checked for possible problems with the eyes, and get prescription and glasses, prescribed glasses. And some of it, okay, may be sensory, physical, and the memory also a decline. Dementia start to kick in. Health behaviors and lifestyle choices. Most of the time, as we are creatures of habit. People don't just become old adults and start behaving one way or the other. Most of their behavior or the behavior they exhibit or as old adults are those behaviors that they had as adults or young adults. So generally have more favorable health behavior than younger counterparts. So if they had never engaged in any of those things like consuming large amounts of alcohol, smoke, or be overweight, you see, because especially with this generation, the boomer generation, most of them went to the forces. And a good part of the being in the army is fitness, trained to be fit, trained to be, take care of your body. And some of them are less likely to consume large amounts of alcohol because large amounts of alcohol, consumption of large amounts of alcohol have contributed to or can contribute to sclerosis of the liver. And when the liver is not able to really do its functions, it can lead to death and can also lead to some form of cancers. Smoking can lead to some to cancer, can contribute to cancer or be overweight, less activity, too much eating, and eating most of the time, most things of the more salt, salty food, high fat food, and sugars, and less activity can contribute to overweight. And with overweight comes things like heart related problems, and also things like diabetes and other forms of health related challenges. So it is extremely important that, see, right now we are talking about older adults, but God willing, we will get to being older adults. What are you doing right now that if you continue doing it at your older age, you will have problems? Do you engage in large consumption of alcohol? Do you smoke? Or are you overweight? What can you do to deal with some of these health issues? Because if you don't deal with them now, they will become very difficult to deal with at your age, at old age. See, some of these things just don't appear. We are creatures of habit, and some of our habits tend to follow us as we move from one age state or one stage in age to the other stage, and the destruction becomes even worse when we move to the other stage, because the ability of our body to fight out some of those chemicals become less and less effective, and that can lead to a lot of health related problems and can contribute to death. Areas for improvement. See, physical activity at all age is always very, very important. It helps with the way our body processes our food, the way we deal with stress, and the way we feel about ourselves. So it's one of those. There's no limitation for being physically fit. Yes, when you become an older adult, you don't need to run 3 miles every day, but you can just do some minor physical activities at home. But again, it comes to for us to promote physical activities, we also have to promote the environment in which these people live so that that environment is safe for them to engage in those physical activities. The environment is supportive for those people to engage in those physical activities. The environment also has all those amenities that makes it possible for people to engage in physical activities. And immunizations. Usually the regular immunization at certain age, at that age, is the flu. Take the vaccine. There's been a lot of talk about the vaccine, and there's some of it is garbage. And people have to make sure that the vaccine helps to prevent people from being sick, seriously ill when they're infected with the disease, and in some situations, even die of it. Vaccinations provide antibodies so that when you are infected with the disease, your antibodies can fight that disease. So please, if you have your older adult members, who are debating whether to take this vaccination, the COVID virus vaccination, please beg them to take them so that you can have more time with them, God willing, than not to take the vaccination and become infected with it. Because if they become infected with the COVID, most of the time the probability of death is very, very high. We have a lot of history that is dark history, bad experiences as to how the medical field has treated minorities. But this is one that we should do all we can to take the vaccination at all ages. When your time is up for the vaccination, please take it. And if you have older adults in your family, please encourage them to take it. At least everything be normal. That will give us some additional time to see them for another vacation, for another celebration, for another, good family gathering. Not taking the vaccination because of some of the falsehood that has been promoted on the internet is a disservice. You as a public health student interested in public health should do all you can to take this vaccination. Older adults are least physically active of any age group. Loss of physical fitness due to aging or chronic conditions, wherein everything aches. Arthritis kicks in, the knee, the back, the whatever start, but again, we should try to promote some form of physical activity. Talk to your doctor. What sort of physical activity is appropriate for you? Physical activity recommendations for older adults are the same as other adults, but only about 11% of older adults meet physical activity guidelines. Nutrition, what you can eat. Here, your dietary concern for older adults include reduced sodium intake, reduced caloric needs. Since you are not that very active, you don't need that many calories, because usually it's the unused calories that end up becoming those things that build up and make us bulky. You are not that active, don't eat too much. Increase vegetable and consumptions. Vegetables contain a lot of vitamins that can help provide ammunition against infection and help us maintain certain body functions. And also increase water consumption, drink more water. Water helps a lot to flush out our body. Obesity. Number of obese older adults has increased. Has increased, not decreased. Number of older adults, of obese older adults has increased. In 2010, 38 of those 65 and over were obese. Only 26 of older adults are in healthy weight range. So that's a big number. Again, a lot of sugary intake, drinks, fatty foods, less activities. People stay indoors, not engaging in activities that can help deal with their body weight. And especially those period, I would like to see what will be the statistics of people after this COVID period, wherein people have stayed indoors for this long. Cigarette, smoking. Just over 9% of older adults are cigarette smokers. This is extremely good because people have started getting the message that cigarette smoking is bad for your health. There is nothing good that cannot be replaced with other healthy substance. The number has decreased significantly over a few decades. Okay, special concerns. Older adults who special concerns are older adults who are former smokers. Because even though people stop smoking, but if they did smoke for quite some time, there are possibilities that they can develop certain cancers. So the best thing is, especially for some of you, my students, don't smoke. If you smoke, stop. Vaccinations. The immune system tends to weaken with age. Just like children have low immune system, older adults have low immune system. That's why most of the time it's always good for them to really be very serious with their vaccine and with their immunizations. In 2014 to 2015, the flu season, 66.7 of older adults received flu vaccination. Only about 60 have ever received pneumococcal vaccination. Again, it's the vaccination that causes or prevent pneumonia. So there's still need for improvement, 60%. Where's the 40%? And who are those groups? How many of are minorities? Vaccination rates among older adults have improved over time, but racial disparities exist. More whites have had these vaccinations as compared to blacks and other underserved populations. Mistreatment of older adults. Reports have increased greatly in recent years. All states have set up reporting systems, especially problem for older adults or special problems for older adults. See, most people live to today, older adults are able to live today by themselves. So some people tend to take abuse, either physically or financially, either steal or beat them up or harass them. So, and some of this, now there are reporting system wherein people who are caught doing those abuse in that population should be reprimanded. Special problem for older adults is dementia and cognitive impairment. The minds just stop being sharp. They forget, can't think effect properly, and I think all of us have family members dealing with dementia, wherein their thinking is not as sharp as it was at certain time in of their lives. Past experience with domestic violence. Some of them have encountered domestic violence, again, depending on where they live, the environment, what is the social support. Could be bearing up for women being raped, people steal. Then you have the frailty, just become weak. Then you have the social isolation. That's also another challenge that older adults have to deal with. The instrumental needs of older adults. 6 instrumental needs that determines lifestyle for people of all ages. Aging process can alter needs in unpredictable ways. As you age, that can affect your income, your housing, your personal care, your health care, your transportation and community facilities and services. This is common for all ages. Your income also changes. Change in type of expenses in older years. Achieving older adult status often reduces income needs. Income have improved slightly in recent years, but Social Security becomes your main major source of income. Unmarried and minorities have highest rate of poverty. Unmarried women and minorities have highest rate of poverty. Goes back to those conditions that we are talking about. Education opportunities gives rise to job opportunities. Job opportunities gives rise to proper employment opportunities that can give you the ability to build estate, to buy a house, to invest in all different things that down the road can be a sort of asset for you. But when you don't have those, it becomes a problem. And when it comes to marriage within the African American situation, it's becoming a real, it's a disaster. See, and that has a bearing on the quality of life of both African American men and African American women as we age. Two people, regardless of whatever, can help each other psychologically and physically when they are together. They need each other as they age far more than when they were young. But if we tend to live longer, I think we have to make marriage work. We have to make it work. Just don't say, oh, I'm tired of this, I'm tired of this. Because one thing in life is, I'm tired of this, I'm tired of this. You go get another. Guess what? The same things will happen. You tired of this, you tired of this, then you get caught up with so many things that it just does not make you, it just creates a lot of possible problems for you down the road. Okay, and I think I would like to end the lecture here on housing. The importance. You just think about some of the importance of living in a house that you own, that have all the amenities, and living in a house without some of these amenities.